with us today is Michael Petinge. He comes to us from Abel Womack, and he's going to be talking to us today about the way you manage your fleet within your facility. And he's a great guy. We wanted him here to let everyone know that he has a lot of information that he can share with us, and he can fill us in on the latest and greatest information about what's going on with managing fleets within facilities. So, Michael, thanks for being with us. It's really great to have you here today for this Global Spec event.
Thanks, Jim. It's a pleasure to be part of this Global Spec event. A few years back, fleet management for lift trucks was mentioned, but really never took hold. Lately, it's come back with a vengeance. To stay competitive, companies must cut costs and remain as productive as they were. In their fleet management world they live in now, they gather minimum data, but really are reactive to those results. Or they gather too much data and do nothing with them. I hope to share with you some options that will allow you to gather the valuable information to make factual, impactful decisions for your organization that will positively affect your bottom line. Fleet management, the new buzzword. It's actually not a new buzzword, but I think it's really taking hold now as people are using fleet management in the day-to-day operations, but aren't really taking hold or taking advantage of all the information that's available to them. For example, according to DC Velocity, 97% of the warehouses utilize a spreadsheet to manage their lift truck fleet. They use information such as the types of trucks they have, the year of the trucks, perhaps who drives them, but they become more reactive with that information. And it's not uncommon for fleets to have 20% or more larger than necessary. How many times have you walked through a warehouse where you saw 4 or 5 trucks parked in the corner that haven't been used? When people do talk about fleet management and fleet replacement, they typically have a cycle where they perhaps lease the equipment for 5 to 7 years with maintenance, and at the end of that term, they just turn the trucks over. And that is sort of fleet replacement without using all the information that's capable of being gathered. Otherwise, the trucks will run for 12 to 15 years as the maintenance costs continue to build up, because that's how it's always been done before. But in reality, the Industrial Truck Association says that the average useful life of a lift truck is 8 years. As it passes that 8-year period, the maintenance costs increase, and the cost will continue to grow until something is done with that truck. A lot of questions arise from fleet management and what do I need to know, or what would I like to know? There are some simple things that customers are asked for all the time, but really don't have any way of gathering this information. For example, if I asked, what do you spend on your lift truck fleet each year? You may be able to gather that information by asking your service center who does the repair work or your own maintenance staff. But if I asked you, what do you spend on each truck, and to break it down into certain levels of detail, I think that would be somewhat difficult for most companies to gather. And outside of the maintenance side of the costs, how many trucks are sitting in your warehouse right now just in case? Maybe you have a peak season or a rush at the end of the quarter that you actually keep trucks on hand specifically for that purpose. And with the trucks that are moving, how much time does each truck actually spend traveling or lifting with the load? If you can't answer these questions, you're not alone. There's so many DC managers in very large distribution centers that cannot provide a detailed report of fleet costs or usage patterns. But management is continually asking them for this type of information. When customers find out about fleet management and the opportunity they have to improve, what are they really looking to improve? Some simple things that jump out is increased productivity or realize some labor savings. But there are a lot of other things that can take place from a process improvement standpoint and instill a driving accountability. But the problem has been, how can I cost effectively get this information in a timely manner, but in a form that I'm able to easily read and easily make quality decisions? Some of the pressures that they deal with today include cutting down overhead costs. That could include rentals and labor and maintenance costs, or any overtime that has to take place. Everyone talks about reducing maintenance costs. How can you effectively set up a maintenance schedule where my budget is locked up and I have less maintenance due to abuse and damage to the equipment or the material or products? And then the ultimate answer to most fleet management says, I'd love to reduce my overall cost for my fleet. That could be doing what I just mentioned before, or just reducing the overall fleet size, eliminating some of the trucks that aren't needed, and making sure that the trucks that you are using are the correct truck for that application. Fleet maintenance, fleet optimization, operator optimization, these are all terms that over the last few years have been used for what people consider fleet management. And it is true, all these are a part of fleet management and their end result. But the reality is, in order to really maximize your operation in your fleet, you need to use what we call fleet management and optimization. Okay? With all that data, the usable data that you're able to gather, DCs now, distribution centers, can easily identify areas of improvement. Simple things like which trucks cost the most to operate, what trucks are used the most, what are the causes of these avoidable damages and downtimes, set parameters as which operators are the most productive. Whatever the baseline or the metrics for your operation are, the fleet management system will provide you the answers and results for you to move forward. So what is fleet management and optimization? It's simply the practice of using data to modify operational and purchasing practices to achieve flexibility, efficiency, and cost savings. Collecting data is only a part of the fleet management system. In order to successfully implement fleet management, many steps have to take place. Once the data is gathered, an assessment of the data to determine what falls under your priority and what meets your ROI requirements should be discussed. From that point on, an evaluation of those data points should take place so you're able to make recommendations on what process should take place. Should we eliminate some trucks? Should we add some trucks? And so forth. Once that recommendation is made, then implementing the fleet management decisions are a vital part of the success. Typically, implementations are done in phases, and once the implementation is complete, you're able to then report on what the end results were to measure against your baselines that were established before the data was gathered. Once that is complete, the cycle continues where there's additional assessment, evaluation, recommendation, and so forth. So what type of tools would you use for an effective fleet management system? Since the lift truck has a lot of information, that's where we want to start. Most lift trucks can be equipped with what they call an information recorder, which ties into the brains of the truck, the vehicle manager, the piece of the truck that handles all of the details of what the truck does on a daily basis. That information is typically passed on to a computer system, whether it be wireless or in batch mode. From that point on, the information is moved into a user-friendly report that allows you to make decisions based on all the data gathered. These reports can be standard reports or they can be customizable specifically for your operation. And as important, it has to be easy to use from all locations. Nowadays, most companies have several locations, so in order to tie all this information in, it's imperative that it runs on an internet to handle multiple locations, whether it's locally hosted or worked as a software as a service. There's a lot of information on lift trucks these days. Once again, all that information is wonderful, only if you can extract it easily and put it in user-friendly terms. Information that is readily available but brings low impact to the organization is easy to acquire in what most people have right now. The more difficult information to extract, however, is the most impactful to your organization. Once that information is extracted, it has to be used to positively affect your bottom line, which should be the end result of any fleet management system. Let me walk through the fleet management deployment. Since the information from the reach truck needs to be passed on, a recorder is installed on a lift truck, typically a very small box that is out of the way from the operator. The information that's taken from the truck is then passed through your in-house wireless network. That information is passed on to a server where the truck usage information is gathered. Coupled with that, information from the maintenance service centers or your own maintenance department of what was done to the truck from a maintenance standpoint is also passed along. That information then is passed on into a simple dashboard, which is nothing more than a portal to gather a lot of information about a lot of trucks at a high level, but the capability to drill down at a lower, more detailed level. So the information is passed on from the lift truck through the network to the server, which is broken down into simple to use reports, customizable for your operation, that will facilitate effective and timely decision making. So with fleet management and optimization, what can I expect? What kind of decisions can I expect to make? Well, the first would be to identify, track, and report your operator's productivity. The second would be to identify the maintenance cost per truck. Not just the maintenance cost as a whole, but a detail of what the maintenance costs were, whether it was for general repair, guaranteed service, or damage or abuse, broken down to the level of detail that's required, as well as optimizing the current fleet size and the makeup of your truck types. So, fleet management. As we mentioned before, the fleet usage metrics is very important. What are the trucks doing? Who's driving them? Fleet maintenance costs, once again, very important if you look at the dollar standpoint. That would be considered the core of a fleet management and optimization system. However, most fleet management systems now include other options that will do nothing more than enhance the operation. For example, access control, knowing which operator is on the truck and making sure he's certified to be on that truck. Impact management. Every warehouse has rack damage and product damage. If you can eliminate just a little bit of that damage, that would be beneficial to your operation, both in productivity and uptime. Doing the pre-operation checklist electronically, which is now required by OSHA to be done, having it done electronically also allows you to set up work orders based on any issues that may be going on with the truck at that time. Battery management. All fork trucks require batteries. All electric fork trucks require batteries, and battery management is a big part of the success and the productivity of those pieces of equipment. And GPS and visibility. Knowing where your operators are and where they're going is imperative to improve that process flow going forward. Operator accessibility and productivity tracking is a major part of any fleet management system. With regard to operator accessibility, first and foremost, only authorized operators should be on that lift truck. That can be accessed through some sort of prox card, a barcode label, or entering a password on a keypad, but it allows you to track which operator is actually on that truck. It also allows you to see if that operator is specifically certified for that piece of equipment. If they're not certified and officially trained to be on that piece of equipment, you could have it shut it down and not allow him access on that piece of equipment. It allows him access to a specific piece of equipment. And finally, all operations are date and time stamped, which is crucial when measuring the productivity of the operators. It also manages impact and damage control. In many cases, once an operator knows that there is some sort of impact control in place, damage in your warehouse should be reduced. It also captures trends in productivity. Certain parts of the week, certain parts of the day, certain parts of the month may be more productive, and that allows you, moving forward, to assist in planning for these peak periods. And lastly, it holds some accountability to the driver. And accountability typically means improved driver behavior. Why is improved driver behavior important? If you look at the pyramid to the left, the operator represents close to 75% of the cost of the life of a lift truck. Maintenance and initial purchase cost and so forth is a very small percentage. The cost of an operator, fully loaded, includes things as overtime and insurance cost. But as the drawing shows, that's just the tip of the iceberg. 5 to 50 times the direct cost has a lot to do with other things that are more indirect that an operator would deal with that a lot of times does not come out on any financial sheet, but absolutely is reflected on the productivity of your operation. There are some simple productivity reports that a fleet management system will allow. This is a simple high-level one that just shows how many trucks are in operation during a certain period of time. You can take that information and break it down into a more customized approach. In this case, this is determining the daily vehicle usage. For example, how much time the truck was turned on, how much time it was being used lifting, how much time it was being used traveling, and so forth. That information is valuable, but to be able to use the management system to make factual decisions, let's break this down a little further. This is a graph that shows increased productivity versus paid time. If you notice on the right, 358 hours were paid to these operators. 228 hours were actually logged into the vehicle. But more importantly, 110, less than 2/3 of the hours accounted for, had the vehicles moving. And finally, 40 hours of that 358 hours paid was used to move load. This gives you a great opportunity to review your operation to see where you can find areas of improvement. It can also be used to track maintenance costs. Instead of using the typical number of hours, number of weeks, number of months, a fleet management system allows you to actually schedule your preventive maintenance based on actual use, whether it's actual use travel, actual use of lifting, with or without a load. So the wasted maintenance that may take place based on every 30 days or every 60 days is actually eliminated based on the usage of the equipment. It also allows you to manage visibility. Although the screen is a little busy, it does allow you to see what the path of the equipment was and if it makes logical sense in the path that it's taking up and down the warehouse. As important, it allows you to take a graphic look at potential bottlenecks and contentions, high safety risk areas, and an on-demand view of actual material flow activity. This information can be used for laying out your warehouse to make it more effective from a picking and put-away process, but ultimately to optimize your fleet and your operation. This just breaks down a little more detail where most fleet management systems are able to work with a warehouse management system and a labor management system that will actually track those hours worked and give you more visibility than a typical WMS warehouse management system would do. Although the warehouse management labor tracking breaks down the tasks, the fleet management system actually breaks the task down into number of hours lifting, number of hours driving, with or without a load, which allows you then to look at the makeup of that equipment to see if you're utilizing the right piece of equipment for the specific task. Once all this information on the operator is in place, a simple dashboard can be used, which is uniquely designed through a portal that allows you to view an entire fleet across your building or several facilities, looking at such things as operator metrics, impact, and the cost of doing business for that piece of equipment, how much that piece of equipment actually costs to operate per hour, which is extremely important because that's the other side of the financial piece of the fleet management and optimization. Tracking the maintenance is an important part of any fleet management system. It can be done two ways. If a service center or outside service comes in and maintains your equipment, it's imperative they keep record keeping that allows you to input the information so you can use it in your system. Or if your maintenance is done internally, there are programs in place that allows you to easily add what was done on a service standpoint that is easily fed into any fleet management system. Some of the features and benefits of a fleet management system include asset maintenance tracking. This is simply cost per hour and cost per hour of utilization. Important numbers that will be factored into any report that you're going to need to make factual decisions going forward. It also gives you a detailed maintenance cost breakdown. Most people will be able to tell me that we spend X amount on our truck or our fleet, but not many will be able to tell me they spend X amount on regular maintenance, X amount on preventive maintenance, X amount on damage and abuse or avoidable repair. This information is very important if you want to find root cause analysis going forward. It also is the great segment for a truck replacement plan. Instead of just basing your truck replacement plan on the year of the truck and the number of hours, you can also use the amount of maintenance that was spent on that piece of equipment to either rotate or replace that. And finally, if you have several locations, managing all your maintenance under one roof and under one system allows for consolidated invoicing, which frees up a lot of time for people from sorting and adding and trying to attach where the invoice goes. It's a much simpler approach, and the benefits to an organization is it reduces admin overhead, it forces the investigation of root cause analysis, and ultimately reduces maintenance costs. This sample maintenance graph shows a breakdown of different types of repair, from regular service to preventive maintenance and to avoidable repairs. A byproduct of all this information is having more sophisticated maintenance control. Maintenance control would mean you're able to monitor the cost per hour and the cost per utilization by the specific truck serial number and by the location, which now allows you to create some sort of trend analysis and benchmarking that you can base your results on. It also allows you to generate reports, which will identify the location of the trucks with the higher cost, which allows the customer to take corrective action on issues specific to an environment. And it also allows you to generate reports that can identify the component costs. Which parts are you replacing most on which pieces of equipment, which also allows you to prioritize your repair costs going forward. With all this information, a fleet replacement plan does not have to be based strictly on the age of a lift truck. You're able to use more accurate, detailed maintenance costs and utilization reports. You're able to balance your heavy used equipment with your lighter used equipment to rotate to extend the life cycle of each of those pieces of equipment. And it allows you to spread out the implementation of a fleet replacement plan, which will avoid any major capital expenditures every 5 to 8 years, depending on your typical cycle. So what are some real-life results? A distribution facility recently showed a return in less than 18 months. They increased their operator productivity up to 20% while reducing a lot of overtime costs. They were also able to reduce their fleet size close to 15%, which in turn lower capital costs, battery-related costs, and maintenance costs because those pieces of equipment were no longer in service. They were actually able to minimize their operating costs as well on maintenance, rentals, damage, and the amount of time it took to swap batteries. On top of that, they did see some increased safety and security improvements as well. One of the most difficult tasks for most operations teams is to get upper management buy-in. I'm sure you've all heard this is not the way we've done things in the past. Well, right now, data can be used to make changes in fleet operations and driver behavior, as well as the explanation and justification to upper management to prove that your operation could use these improvements with hard facts that are based on information that's been gathered over the past several months. The objective of any presentation to upper management should be to create baselines against which specific savings can be measured. Without baselines, you'll have no idea whether your program was a success or not. Some customers have used various return on investment examples to determine if the fleet management system paid off. The most obvious would be to reduce the equipment fleet. Reducing equipment quantity gives you savings in maintenance costs, depreciation expenses, and future capital expenses since the equipment no longer has to be replaced. Other customers have used fleet utilization reports. This allows them to balance the utilization of older and newer equipment. Balancing the usage allows them to minimize overuse of new equipment and improve the underutilization of the older equipment. And finally, labor savings. Typically after a 3-month baseline, companies are able to decrease lost labor time by identifying idle time using the reports that you saw previously. Operator efficiency reports allow them to measure those who are below standard. It will drive high utilization of the workforce and lower the variable costs. So, in summary, data is available. It just needs to be extracted and easy to understand, not only at a high level in a summary form, but also in a detail specific to what your expectations are. Baselines and expectations have to be set, and they'll allow you to measure the results of the decisions and allow you to act on them. And your fleet is very dynamic. It's imperative that you manage it that way. So what are your next steps? I recommend you consult your material handling lift truck partner to discuss your expectations of a fleet management system. It's important to know what you'd like to get from such a system. You will be able to review various systems that fit your requirements. There are several systems out there, some more complex than others, so it's important for you to choose the one that gives you the results you're looking for. And plan on a phased implementation. Based on priority and ROI, it doesn't have to be the Big Bang Theory. It is very easy to slowly implement certain high throughput, high productivity trucks to see what information you're gathering to use it going forward. And that brings my presentation to a close. Are there any questions, Jim?
Mike, in fact, I do have some questions here, and I'd like to see if we can cover a few of them while we've still got you.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, what is the typical cost of an average system?
Well, if I based it on a 10 to 15 truck application, which is pretty common, the cost is around $2 per truck per day for a relatively high-end system, plus the minimal infrastructure costs and implementation costs that take place. The infrastructure and implementation costs are one-time charges, and they typically fall well within the $10,000 to $15,000 budget.
Okay. And what has been your experience in terms of payback periods?
We've typically seen a payback period of 12 to 18 months, but I actually think that the payback was quicker. It's just the customers didn't have a baseline to really compare their results.
How disruptive is implementing something like this in terms of changing my operation?
It's really not disruptive at all. The installation of the recorder, which is really what would take the time, takes between 1 to 3 hours. The interaction between the operator and that recorder is very minimal, so he's spending more time being productive and less time, playing with the gadgets on his truck. And the training, which is typically very short for the operator, is less than a day for the person who's going to be generating reports, and can easily be done online.
Am I going to need to increase the size of my IT staff in order to make this happen?
No. If your IT staff has the capacity and the capability to support this system, then that's great. But you can also have a system that's remotely hosted. It's usually charged a monthly fee. You lose no functionality, but you gain the advantage of not having to support that database and the information yourself.
And are these systems proprietary?
Some lift truck manufacturers do make their own hardware components, while others use an open architecture, which simply means they take the best of breed componentry and allow you to use what you feel most comfortable with and what specifically fits your need.
Okay, and in terms of my own personnel here, who's going to be involved in this fleet analysis?
Typically, the operations managers are the ones that drive the project, but they will absolutely bring in the VP of operations, the CFO, the safety managers, and the maintenance managers. So it really is a full team effort.
And what would you say is the type of IT infrastructure that's going to be necessary to do this effectively?
Well, the advantage of technology and fleet management systems today is they work on your current Wi-Fi network, your 802.11 system. There's very limited amount of information that's traveled through, so most customers who are using such a system are using their existing network. There is an opportunity, however, to use a proprietary 900 megahertz or cellular line, which just allows the fleet management system to run independently of your existing network. Either way, your material handling specialist, during their review, will be able to walk you through what's most effective for you.
Great, Mike, thank you. That's about all the questions we have for now. If you just want to look at the camera and kind of nod your head a little bit as I'm saying goodbye to you, that would be great. And then when I get done saying goodbye, you can just say, hey, thanks, Jim. It was really great to be here today. So, Mike, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jim. It was really great being here today.